Welcome, friends, to Finance Working Mama. My name is Heather, and thank you so much for joining me today. Now that we're rounding out January and heading straight into February, are you guys wondering what 2024 will actually bring to you and your family? Are you wondering what the economy will be like? Are you curious how unemployment will end up? Are you thinking, will inflation decrease? Will it increase or stay at its pace? Will the Feds decrease or increase rates this year? And will groceries finally steady out? Well, we're going to talk about all of that today. Okay, friends, the one thing that I can tell you that I do on a daily basis is understand the finance world, because that is definitely my day job. And I listen to a lot of analysts on a daily basis, a lot of economists. I read lots of articles, and my job is to sort of find the consistent message that all of them are delivering, and then be able to combine that and help my clients work within the world that we're living in and help provide them and support them in a plan to accomplish their goals in their business on a daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly basis. So what does that mean for the Americans and the American household? You're wondering, what will 2024 actually mean? Well, I can tell you the consistent message with each and every one of these strategists, analysts, and economists. The consistent message is that unemployment will still remain at a consistent level low. Now, will it crease up? Yes. Will it go down dramatically? No. It's sort of going to chug along. We're starting to see massive layoffs in certain industry, but the important is we're not seeing massive layoffs in a lot of industries, which is what we faced in the Great Recession in 08, 9, and 10, and that lingered, I felt like, in 11 and 12. We're not going to see that, which that should give you some reassurance. And what does that mean? And does that mean that are we in a recession? Are we out of recession? Are we going into recession? Well, many might conclude and thought that as inflation went up and just kept climbing up and eventually started to trickle down, that's when we went into maybe a small recession. That's what some people feel in the finance world. Others feel that we didn't quite go into recession, but our economy definitely slowed down, which was needed in order to get the inflation to go down. What does that mean for 2024? I think that means what you see is what we're going to consistently see through 2024. It's not going to be a gangbuster of a year with economic growth, but I don't feel like it's going to go in the wrong direction. I think it's going to truck along until 2025, which most people and strategists and economists are predicting is that mid-2025, some think second quarter of 2025, that the economy will start moving in a very positive growth direction, which is encouraging, right? At least you know sort of what you're getting, and you can manage through the next year. And you're hoping that inflation won't spike up, and so does everyone. The Fed met in January, and they decided not to decrease rates, and they decided not to increase rates. However, they are not going to decrease rates until they consistently see inflation at 2%. So when they meet in March again, people feel pretty confident that they're not going to increase it or decrease it. They want to make sure that inflation stays at a 2% level consistently month to month to month to month before they decide to decrease rates. What does that mean? When would that might be? I think the Fed feels that they can confidently do that in mid-2024, but most analysts will state that they feel like it's going to be more later 2024, maybe third quarter or fourth quarter. So what does that mean for you? Well, what that means for you and your family and your household is that pretty much the prices that you see in the grocery store are the prices that you're going to have to get comfortable with spending. Yes, inflation has gone down, and yes, we're starting to see inflation go to that 2% range. which is the comfort level of a lot of strategists and analysts and economists. However, it's not going to change that most of the things that we see in the store and what we consume in the grocery store is a commodity. And that is driven by production of fruits and veggies and poultry and beef. All of that is a commodity and is priced as such. So, example, eggs we saw in 2022 and 2023. That was an all-time high. They were $5 and $6 and $7. Well, what happened is that there was a virus that hit the egg production. And so they had to eliminate the virus, which meant that they had to hurt the supply of eggs. So when there's definitely a demand and there's less supply, it's a much increase in price. Now, as 2023 went by on the way, we saw that prices went down because they were able to get egg production back up, which means they had more of a supply and it met the demand, which helped lower the price. That's an example of the commodity that we are going to face. So I would encourage you guys, it's probably disheartening to sort of hear that prices aren't going to go down like we've seen in years past. But the encouraging part is you can't control everything that's outside your house. But the one thing that you can control is what's inside your house. And I ask and I encourage that parents, husbands and wives, partners, sit down and think about how you can manage and control what goes on in your household. Put a plan in place. Put a budget in place. Look at those on a weekly and monthly and quarterly basis to make sure you're staying on track. Now, I will tell you, that's not the funnest thing to do. I can tell you there's a lot of things that I'd much rather be doing versus like looking at a spreadsheet and making sure that we're staying in line. However, it's a necessity. It allows us not to feel stress when the outside world is so stressful. You can control what you can control, and that is your household. Put things into play to help pay down debt. Put things into play to make sure we're putting a little away in savings for those moments that hit you, that you need additional funds to pay for something. Build out your pantry. So when you're seeing things on sale that is much lower than what the market is typically, that you can buy a couple more and stock that pantry. So that way you don't have to buy it when it's high, that you have a resource in your pantry that you can use because you bought it on a low. Use your house in your pantry, in your business plan for your house as a strategy to control expenses that will allow you to put money back in your pocketbook. Now, as I mentioned in the 4th week of January, I was not going to the grocery store for 2 weeks. And I was destined to stay within my $400 budget, which was food for the family, food for the puppies, household goods, and personal products. That was all encompassed of the $400 budget. And I met that. Thankfully, I met that. And I did that by using up the things that needed to be used up in the refrigerator, but also utilizing my pantry. I didn't have to run out to the store, and to be honest, it felt good not having to run out to the store. I just made my plan and I worked my plan for the 2 weeks for my family. And they didn't miss a beat. They never said, "Mom, when are you going to the store?" No, they didn't say that, thankfully. I actually had them pick out meals that they really wanted and that they really enjoyed. And that's sort of what we did the last week of January. As you remember, January ended on a Wednesday, January 31st, and I did not go back to the grocery store until February 3rd. So I went an entire week, really, utilizing the pantry items that I have on stock. I will share with you those recipes and that meal plan on how we went through the last week of January. And actually, my daughter, Ava, is going to cook for you her absolute favorite meal. She ate it for 2 nights and for 3 lunches. That's how much she loves it. And she's the picky one in our family. She doesn't like a lot of foods mixed together. She doesn't like a lot of spices. So when she really enjoys something, I really try to get her excited about it and stay excited. And cooking is a great opportunity to get your kids to eat more foods. If they make it, they tend to want to eat it, at least for that dinner. Maybe not for the next dinner, but for at least that dinner. So I'm going to allow her to show you her very favorite recipe. And then I'll show you a couple more that we use during the week. And hopefully that will give you guys an idea and some additional plans that you could do for your family. And I will also share with you those pantry stocked items that I had on hand just for those recipes. I always have products in the pantry that could attain 5 recipes. And there are 5 recipes that my family loves. So you can't go wrong, right? Can't go wrong if you stock your pantry with the 5 recipes and ingredients that your family is going to love and want to eat. And we're going to share with you 3 of those 5. The recipe that she's going to show you, I actually got it from another YouTube mom. Her channel is See Mindy Mom. And she does a lot of food content, focuses around her household and her kitchen and what she feeds her family. But most importantly, a lot of her recipes that she shares are budget friendly, but most importantly, fast and kid friendly, which is always a plus. And 2 of these recipes that we're sharing with you today come from her channel, and I will make sure to share those recipes in the description below.
This recipe is called Porcupine Skillet, and this is Ava's favorite recipe. The items I always keep in my pantry are the following and is needed in this recipe: a packet of onion soup mix, a can of diced tomatoes, white rice, a jar of parmesan, and a pound of ground beef. The recipe actually calls for cheddar cheese, but in a pinch, we don't have fresh, jarred parmesan would work.
All right, I have 2 beautiful little helpers in the kitchen today. We've got Amelia, she is our koala. We have Ava, and they're gonna help me make Ava's favorite recipe, meaning she doesn't like things mixed together, but she will eat this particular recipe. So she's gonna teach us how to make it. This recipe is called Porcupine in the Skillet. So we're going to start with probably some olive oil. I'm going to put it in the pan until I tell you enough. Keep going, keep going. All right, that's good. Ava, why do you like this recipe?
Because it's so good.
Good. Let's put the ground beef in there. You need a pound of ground meat. We're using 90% lean ground beef today. Here we go. All right. You gotta really put some muscle in it. Muscle, muscle. You wanna... It's getting a little hot is what it is. So that's why it's important to get it incorporated quickly. Okay? Okay. Alright, Amelia, can you hand your sister onions? The onions over there?
Where do I put this?
You keep it. Now this recipe does not call for onions, but we like onions, so we're adding it. It actually calls for 1 pound of ground beef, a can of diced tomatoes, a packet of the onion Lipton soup mix, 3/4 cup of rice, and then a cup and a half of hot water. And I made the addition of the onions and the garlic. And so Amelia, can you hand Sissy the garlic? Spoon.
Okay. Okay. All right, how about we do some pepper now? You gonna put some pepper in there?
I gave it to me when to stop.
Okay.
Wait.
You gotta.
I gave it to you.
Okay. That's good.
And this is one of my mom's new pots that she got for Christmas.
I know. Mama gave me this pot, didn't she?
Because that yellow one was getting burnt up.
Well, it was very well used, right?
Yeah.
Because Mommy cooks a lot, doesn't she?
And her food's good.
Is my food good?
Yes.
Okay. Amelia, you see that little packet? There's Tinkerbell in the background. She's letting everybody know she's here. All right. Let's pour the onion soup mix in there. All right. Keep separating the meat. It's important not to have big chunks. We want small little bits of ground beef in there. I'm very proud of Ava. She does not like flames. And so I'm proud that she's actually wanting to cook near the stove, huh, Ava? Okay. Why don't we use, get those diced tomatoes. Pour it in there. You want to get it closer? No, we don't want splatters. You got to get it closer to the pan. Okay. Amelia, can you hand your sister that spoon? Black spoon? Yep. You want to mix it in with the ground beef. All right. So let's add the rice now. Pour it in there. Now, I like to get the rice browned a little bit before adding in the water. To get it all stirred in. Now, we're going to add the 1.5 cups of hot water. Do you want me to pour this over, or do you want to?
I want you to pour it.
It's boiling hot, isn't it? Alright, so we got 1 cup. And then we'll do 1.5 cup next. Important, get it all stirred in.
What are you doing?
All right, now that we got it all stirred in, we're going to cover it and let the rice cook. Get that off. For 25 minutes on low. Okay, it has been 25 minutes. We're going to see if it is done. What do you think, Ava?
It looks so good.
Does it look good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's make sure the rice is done. It looks like the rice is done, but let's just double check. It is done. So what we're going to do you like cheese on top of yours? No, we don't. Okay. So, because we've cooked this recipe on a Sunday to have it for the week, we're going to put it in this casserole dish. And then when we're ready to eat it, we're going to serve individual portions, heat them up individually, and then whoever would like to top their dish with cheese, you can, but typically it's about they say a cup of cheese on top melted before serving. So since Miss Ava prefers no cheese on hers, we will leave it off and then let other people put theirs on when they're ready to eat it. Good job, Ava. That looks delicious.
The second recipe is turkey tortellini soup. All the ingredients you see here is what I keep always in the pantry or in the freezer. The garlic powder, the minced onion, the evaporated milk, the jarred parmesan, and the chopped spinach are all items I keep on hand just in case those items are not available fresh in my refrigerator. I'm going to do a pound of ground turkey. You could use whatever type of sausage you want. This is a pound of ground turkey sausage. I've used Italian sausage in the past. I've used spicy Italian sausage, which was even better. But today I'm using turkey sausage because it's lower in fat and calories and cholesterol, which are all the things we're trying to watch in this household right now. I'm going to add a half of a diced onion. If I did not have fresh onion, I would do 4 tablespoons of minced onion. And then I would add 2 teaspoons of fresh garlic. If I didn't have fresh garlic, I would use about 1.5 teaspoons of garlic powder, or maybe 2 teaspoons. It's really up to your preference. Garlic is a taste for whatever a family enjoys. Some like a lot, some like a little, some doesn't like any at all. So I trust that you will make the right decision on the amount of garlic you put in your dish. I'm also going to add about 1 tablespoon of Italian seasoning. And I am going to do 2 cans of diced tomatoes. Now you will see that I switched it up this time. I did a can of diced tomatoes, and then I did a can of Rotel. I did this because I wanted to see how it would turn out. And it actually turned out delicious. It was the right amount of spice, and the spice did not bother my kids. So I might do it again the next time. But if you don't like the green chilies, or if you don't like the spice, just stick to the 2 cans of diced tomatoes. I'm going to jizz all that around and get it incorporated. And then last but not least, before I slow it down for 6 hours, I'm going to add 2 cups of chicken broth. I don't have fresh chicken broth on hand, so I'm doing 2 teaspoons of broth base, and I'm going to do 2 cups of hot water. I'm going to stir that around, and I'm going to cover it. I'm going to kick it down to low and cook it for 6 hours. After 6 hours, I will put the remainder of the ingredients needed to complete the dish. And we have about 10 to 15 minutes left after I add the last ingredients. I'm going to add 9 ounces of cheese tortellini. And of course, I made a mistake. I grabbed the wrong pasta. As you can see, I grabbed the mini cheese ravioli. And I didn't realize it until I threw it in the pot. Well, luckily my children liked it, thankfully. They don't like the large ravioli, but they did enjoy this tiny ravioli. So, turned out okay. You could use ravioli mini, or you could use the cheese tortellini. I'm also going to put about 1 cup of milk. I usually do 2%, 1 cup, 2% milk, but I wanted to save the 2% for my kids. So I used the remaining amount of evaporated milk, which was 3/4 of a cup. And then to round out that cup, I did about 1/4 of a cup of half and half. And then I did 2 heavy handfuls of spinach and zhuzh that all around. And the last but not least, I'm going to grate about a cup of Parmesan. Now, if I didn't have fresh Parmesan, I would use that jar of Parmesan in place of that. And that's about a cup in that jar. And if I did not have fresh spinach, I would probably do 2 handfuls of that chopped frozen spinach in this recipe. I'm going to cover it, and I'm going to kick it up to the saute and sear selection on the crock pot, and I'm going to let it cook for about 10 minutes to 15 minutes until the ravioli or tortellini and the cheese has melted and has cooked thoroughly. And while it is finished cooking, I'm going to do some fruit for my kids, and I'm going to toast up some fresh buttered bread for them. The third recipe is chicken drumsticks. This is definitely a family favorite for the adults as well as the kids. These are all the items I keep on hand on a regular basis, either in my in my freezer or in my pantry, to ensure that I can make this recipe for them at any given time, especially during a week like this where I'm not going to the grocery store. Now, I am going to start by searing my drumsticks. As you've seen, or if you've seen my other videos, you have heard me say that I feel like searing your meat is just a good practice to do if you have the time. Now, there are moments that I don't have the time to do this, so I just throw the drumsticks in the bottom of a slow cooker, season it with the spices I have, and hit it on low and cook it for 6 to 8 hours. But today, I had about 15 minutes to spare, so I thought, since I am cooking these drumsticks to get me through 2 dinners, I thought I'd take an extra step in time and sear all of the drumsticks. Now, you see that I'm searing 5. I'm actually going to sear and cook 10. Now, sometimes my kids will eat 1 drumstick, sometimes they eat 2. For the most part, they will eat 1. So this should get us through two dinners perfectly well, and maybe a couple lunches during the week. I'm going to season this with a mixture of seasoning salt, which is a mixture of seasonings that have garlic powder, onion powder, paprika, salt, and I think a few other items, and some cracked pepper, and a little of the Italian salad dressing seasoning mix. Now this concoction, as my daughter Ava will say, is the concoction of spices that my children enjoy eating, and so that's really important because their palates are a lot more sensitive than ours. They don't like typically strong seasoning in their food, but this is what they enjoy, so I'm going to stick with that today, especially since these chicken drums will carry us for 2 different meals this week. So let's talk about side dishes. With this meal or 2 meals, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to pull out, because I don't have, I'm in a week that I'm not going to the grocery store, so I'm a little sparse on fresh veggies. So I'm going to go into my freezer and pull out some frozen veggies. My children love frozen veggies, especially green beans, broccoli, and the California mix, which is cauliflower, carrots, and broccoli. They simply like it steamed with absolutely no seasoning on it. How easy can that be? I take it out of the freezer, I heat it up in the microwave, serve it to them on the plate. Now my husband and I, we do like a little seasoning. We will put some salt and pepper, or maybe some seasoning salt, or our favorite, Slap Your Mama, which is a mixture of more spicier seasonings. But we will do that. We will add a little bit more flavor to ours. Now I'm going to the second batch of drumsticks. I do these in shifts because I don't want to overcrowd my pan. I want to make sure that the chicken drumsticks are getting enough room so they can give a nice hard sear. Chicken drums have a little bit more fattier content, so they will, over the course of the 6 to 8 hours, I either cook it for 6 or 8 hours, they will render a lot more juice than a skinless chicken breast. So for that purpose, I'm going to make sure I give them plenty of room to sear a nice hard sear and crust on the outside. I'm going to do the same seasoning on these 5 as I did the other 5. You could switch it up. You could do a different seasoning on these and just have 2 different spices on the chicken drums, because when you put all of them back in, they'll still be somewhat on their own and won't mesh too much together in the flavorings. But for the purposes of this menu for this week, I chose the same spices because, again, my kids will be eating this throughout the week as well. Now, another side item I'm going to put with this dish is the Near East rice pilaf mix. Now, I keep this in the pantry, a number of boxes in the pantry, for a couple of reasons. One, again, my children like it. We all enjoy it. 2, it's one of the few boxes of rice mixtures, or what I call carb mixtures, in a box that doesn't have a lot of preservatives in it. Actually, it has very little or to none. And I'm a little sensitive to a lot of preservatives, as well as my daughter Ava. And so this brand particularly is a good one because it doesn't have a lot of the stuff in it. Now, I usually cook this up on a Sunday. Remember, I do a lot of prep work prior to the week, so I don't have to spend a lot of time at the stove. I want to keep everything about 15 minutes in preparation during Monday through Friday because it's busy. Now, I usually will cook that box on Sunday and have it in the refrigerator and serve it up with the dishes throughout the week, because it does take about 20 to 25 minutes to cook. So just keep that in mind if you decide to use this option as a meal plan. Look at all the goodness at the bottom of that pan. I'm going to put some water and scrape up all that goodness and all those seasonings and the flavor and a little bit of fat that it rendered from the chicken drums. And I'm going to actually leave that liquid in there. I like to leave just a little bit. Chicken drums, as I mentioned before, do render more juice than other leaner meats. But still, I do like to keep a little bit of fluid in there prior to them fully cooked, because I want to make sure it doesn't get too hot and burn at the bottom. I'm going to layer all of these back into the pot. And I'm going to cook this today for 6 hours on low. Now, the one thing that I love about this slow cooker, I got it in January, is that it has a sear saute option. And that is the whole reason why I bought this particular slow cooker. I did a lot of research because I wanted to buy one. I wanted to be able to sear my food and just use one pot. But what's neat about this pot is that you can take the pot, put it in the oven. You can take the pot and put it on the stove. You can take the pot and put it on the dinner table if you want. So, and it's so easy to clean up. That's probably a good part as well. But I'm going to switch this down to low and set it on 6 hours. And it will be ready and delicious for my family when we get home tonight. Pair it with some veggies and that rice pilaf, and we're set for delicious dinner.
Okay, friends, January is officially wrapped up, and I met my goal of only spending $400 for the month of January for groceries with 88 cents to spare. And I did that by a plan that I put in place in 2023. I decided that I was going to gain control over the prices, even though I didn't have any control of the prices. But I decided that I was going to be able to back my pantry, and I was going to do that by only shopping the sales week to week with the items I knew that my family would use and ingredients that I would use in recipes. And it's worked. Guys, I put a plan in place that I was only going to buy items on sale, and then I was only going to make meal plans for my family out of my pantry and what I had currently stocked in my freezer. It's amazing the amount of stress that alleviated, and one, it was almost like a hobby I have now. I get very excited when I get a good price on chicken or beef or canned goods. It's amazing what a high that gives me. Interesting. But it does. I decided to make a change. I decided to put a plan in place, and I worked that plan, and it has helped my family run more successfully. And most importantly, my family supported that plan. I educated them. I told them what we needed to get done, and they agreed to it, and they helped manage it. If you enjoyed today's video, give me a thumbs up. And if you want to know when I post more videos, hit the subscribe button. And thank you, friends, for joining me. And I hope you have a fantastic day. Stay safe and be encouraged.